Last time, on Asmiliath adventures, the dying life of Jarek's memorial plays out across Black Hollow, while our various heroes go about their own ways of winding down. Valoran finds himself in the comforting solace of prayer. Going through the motions, the troubled lord is surprised by a traveling stranger, a peculiar gnome named Clake Deeploam III. Soon after his appearance from the foliage, he explains that the endless wisdom of the stars had led him here. Obviously curious and somewhat on guard, Valoran begins to question the newcomer before inviting him back to town. With further discussion, our party learn that Clake is of the Chevlar's Chosen, an organization determined to eradicate the remnants of the Great Entrance. Filled with a bit of hope, our heroes inquire about getting their aid in their opposition of Torridan. Quickly disheartened, Clake explains that they weren't even aware of his return, and the Order is only a shadow of its former self. Finally saying goodbye to the ever-present orchestra of the swamp, the Golden Hearts leave Black Hollow and travel back to Uken, hoping to meet with Decker's father and learn more about the world at large. Arriving home, the young Caspian is greeted warmly, before being formally invited to a dinner at the family manor. Guaranteeing that his companions look the part, Decker leads the party up the many imposing layers of Uken. Reuniting with his influential parents, Decker introduces the Golden Hearts to his home, quickly helping the group fall into an informative conversation about their mission. Only briefly sitting through the initial gathering, Eldred quickly separates Valoran and Decker into his study for a private conversation. Alone, he puts forth his offer of combining the two prominent families through marriage, whether that was pairing off Valoran with Danica or Decker with Genevieve. At first taken aback, Valoran politely maneuvers around an answer, while learning about the alderman's intentions. Before they are summoned back to dinner, it appears that the politician sees it as a move to secure the future influence for their households. Regathering, that's not an easy word to say, in the large dining room of the manor, a pleasant meal begins before the casual interruption from Danica, Decker's twin sister. Throwing off the usual beat of conversation, Decker breaks away to try and blunt her edges, managing limited success before Valoran boldly invites her to dinner as his guest. The rest of the evening is filled with various conversation, stretching from the proposal, to the taste of the food, to the ultimate doom of humanity. Only calming down once Olita softly banned the discussion of the future, the dinner finally concludes as the sun begins to dip beyond the horizon. It is February 12th, as our heroes find themselves being addressed by the couple of the household, empty plates and full bellies being found all around the table. So you are all still, I'm assuming, either still in your seats or perhaps recently just stood up from your places as the couple stand at the head of the table, kind of give a respectable bow of the head to everybody, and then Eldred would address the entire group. It has certainly been a interesting evening, and Lord Valoran, there is a quick word I wish to have with you in private, but for all intensive purposes, our home is welcome to the Golden Hearts, or the companions of my son. Feel free to make yourself at home, or ask about any sort of needs that may arise. But this will conclude our colorful evening. And then Olita would very graciously bow her head and kind of gesture to everybody. I hope that everybody found what they were looking for in this interesting reunion. And then kind of leave you all to mill about or move whichever direction you choose.
Decker would get up and go give his mama another hug and a kiss on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Mother, it's always a pleasure seeing you.
Perhaps next time you return, you'll be less maimed and more heroic.
I'm not heroic enough for you.
Decker, you always be my little champion. But there wasn't exactly fanfare upon this return.
I'll work on it, Mother.
So, Valoran, as you are stood and Danica was sat beside you during the dinner, she would kind of take a moment, look around, and then find that you two were more or less somewhat alone. She would look up at you. Lord Athelvane, you are not what I expected my father to bestow upon me.
Thank you.
To be honest, I was expecting you to be a bit more rounder.
Perhaps you would favor me with a stroll, Miss Caspian, and any combination of our companions or staff could chaperone in order to preserve a sense of propriety.
At the mention, you'd see like the corners of her lips kind of twerk up a little bit before she like throws a dainty and dramatic hand up to her forehead. Oh, I would never want my innocence to be in question, Lord Valoran.
Nor mine. I would hate to be thought of as a womanizer.
Yes, that would be such a horrible stain, and she kind of like leans her head to look down at Decker at the end of the table.
Jealous.
Well, Lord Athelvane, I find myself very short of companions or friends, so we might have to choose from your stock.
I don't think Thor is doing anything.
He does seem rather, dreary.
It is a recent development, you'll have to forgive him. But and he'll flag down some member of the staff and tell them Miss Caspian and I are going for a stroll. If you would let the master of the house know that I will meet with him afterward.
So this very humble servant would kind of step from one of the walls of the dining room, very graciously, deeply bow before you, much like a overzealous Olive Garden server, and then straighten up a little bit. May I recommend the East Gardens, especially in the evening. It is a beautiful sight of Uken.
If that meets with your approval, Miss Caspian, then we shall be on our way.
She'll just kind of nod very slowly in agreement before the servant kind of like shuffles towards the end of the table to speak with Eldred, who will forego kind of conversing with you for now, knowing that a talk with Danica might lead to whatever answer he's kind of seeking. So, Clay, during this time, what are you finding yourself doing?
Clay's getting a little frisky with the kitty now. He'd probably try and find somewhere out of the way, probably pull out his pipe, study the stars, go through his star charts. If Decker's not doing much, he might join up with him, just depending on, it's probably not courteous to smoke in the hallways, but...
Or would be open to hanging out.
Okay. So did you have anything, important to say to your mother during that discussion, Decker?
No, just giving her some shit.
Yeah, so eventually, your parents and yourself would part ways, kind of leaving you to pick up the stray Clay, or the stray cat, I guess, depending. So you two can go about this time however you would like. If there's anything prominent, we can go through that. Alright, I'll take that as a maybe. So, picking back up to Valoran and Danica, I'm assuming you would just, after, making sure the proper authorities are made aware, you would make your way to the East Gardens.
Yeah, and making sure to our chaperone is there to watch us, but not listen to us. So Valoran will give all appropriate signals for him to maintain some distance and speak in tones that are just for he and Danica.
Okay. Yeah, so as Thor kind of, I don't know, vaguely shadows the two of you as you pass through the halls and then out into the gardens, he would keep a fair enough distance that he would not overhear any conversation that you two had. He does seem a little bit distracted or perhaps deep in thought as everyone's going about this evening. He'd be kind of looking up to the sky a few times, maybe taking the lute out and not strumming it, but just kind of analyzing it from time to time. But besides that, he would, fulfill his duty as chaperone and not try and barge in any way.
So once they get to the garden, Valoran begins with some standard small talk, pointing out flowers that stand out to him, or remarking about the dinner and how crazy it was, and just making niceties until he's sure that they are basically that it's the two of them, right? And at that point, Valoran's expression changes, and he drops some of the like smirking and lilting tones, and sort of engages with Danica a little more like head-on, straightforward. Well, Miss Caspian, you may be relieved to know that you have nothing to fear from me. I don't actually intend to marry you.
Picking up on your shift in demeanor and mimicking it to an extent, she would also drop a little bit of the dramatics that she was kind of relying on beforehand, kind of looking you up and down at your reveal. I don't know if I should be insulted or impressed.
Well, certainly please don't be insulted. It's just that, except perhaps among the most dry and traditional folkish nobles, even we believe in some amount of courting and romance. And you are certainly attractive and make a good first impression, but it is all rather sudden.
Is this the folkish way of playing hard to get?
Not at all. It is my way of playing with your father. He attempts to manipulate me. I attempt to manipulate him. And you are caught in the middle, and for that I apologize.
I don't think an apology is necessary. Not to make you feel ordinary, Lord Athelvane, but my father manipulates everyone, and that handling does not seclude his family.
Still, you deserve better. And I'm not proud of my role in this drama this evening.
For probably the first or maybe the second time this evening, you would see Danica not have a immediate quip, not, brushing off whatever conversation is being had to insert some jab or some joke. She almost stands there, strolls depending on, where you're at this point, just staring at the ground for a few moments before kind of thinking through it and giving you a response. Well, I'll have to say, Lord Athelvane, that you are rather full of surprises. I certainly didn't expect this from you.
The fact is that Asmiliath's civilization does in fact hang on our actions. I want the Caspians, all the Caspians, to support this effort, and I do believe that Folk and Liamus should be realigned.
As I think it's pretty aware at this point that, I'm not one for politics, and I certainly am not one of all the backroom and shady deals and various things that my father, thrives inside. But I do find myself as someone who enjoys a good movement, a call to action. At least things that actually do matter. Following what your, big friend said and the various hints that I have heard, your mission does seem rather important, to give it a lackluster term. So if that's the case, and laying aside all the other opinions that you have about courting and relationships and wooing of maidens, wouldn't it be the best choice to ally yourself with the Caspians through marriage, regardless?
It may be that that is the case. Frankly, your father does appear to be very wealthy, but, well, it's going to take a little more than wealth. Or else it would already be solved. And what's more, I believe in our success. There will be life after this. I wouldn't want either of us to feel that we had made a choice in haste with long-term ramifications. I do have a suggestion, however.
I am all ears.
What I said during dinner was not a lie. You're obviously quick-witted, and I do see an advantage in having two Caspians being better than one, as we go to Folk and go to the Queen's Coast. If I may be so bold, I would suggest that you tell your father that you are intrigued, but not convinced. That I'm not what you expected, but it's only been one night. And that you will, in fact, be traveling with us to Folk. Call it a courtship. Say that you're traveling with Decker, if it sounds better, and I just happen to be along.
Give me a perception check. As you reveal your, I guess, plan, you would see
more,
your kind.
by the way.
Huh?
I've got more, by the way. Just
go for it. Yeah, keep going.
I must warn you that what my big friend says is essentially true. Danger does follow us, but if you are traveling to Folk of your own volition, and we happen to be going in the same direction, well, it would be rude of the Golden Hearts not to provide some protection. Thor can't argue with that.
So as you reveal your plan, you'd see her kind of hiding her face for a moment, and you're unsure what expression she was kind of putting into the shadows, but she would return back with a more calm approach. That is all well and good. But from what I overheard, and I did overhear everything, let's make that clear, I imagine my father is not going to let me travel, either of my own volition or with your fierce gang of companions, unless he gets the answer that he seeks. Now, if we want to discuss how committed we are to that answer, then perhaps we can go that route.
You're proposing a long engagement.
Or we could simply just tell him yes until I'm outside of the walls and then go from there.
Fair enough. I'll play along to an extent with Eldred. I'll be speaking to him after this. I'll work on him a little more myself as well.
Well, I'll be listening.
I hope that you are as good at horseback riding as Decker says. It's a long trip to Folk.
If there's one thing you can rely on a Caspian for, it's a bit of exaggeration, but I guarantee that if I'm half as good as he thinks I am, then I'm better than you.
Well, is there anywhere else we should walk before we head back?
I don't have a destination in mind, but I do have a question for you, Lord Athelbane.
Be my guest.
From my brief interaction with you, you seem rather complex, and don't take that as a compliment yet, I assure you. On one hand, you're very self-righteous. You believe that this mission is paramount and that you're going to see it through, and success is the only option, and I somewhat admire that, even though it might be a foolish belief. But then on the other hand, I don't want to say sell yourself short, but you acknowledge the limitations of your station. Which one is the bigger side of Lord Athelbane?
I am going to accomplish the impossible. The Golden Hearts are going to accomplish the impossible. The limitations are there to be overcome, one way or another.
I think that you and my father are going to be a rather fierce friendship.
We're going to need all the help we can get.
Well, it has certainly been an interesting evening, and I appreciate you not being a fat slob. That was a very pleasant surprise.
Well, one does what one can.
Maybe perhaps when you're old and you are a fat slob, you might look back on this evening and regret your decision.
If I'm old, then it will mean that we have achieved at least one incredible success. Shall we?
She'll just kind of silently nod along and keep her opinion to herself. But, of course, finishing off your walk, whatever time frame that takes, and returning back to the manor, Decker and Clay, would you be up to any sort of mischief in the meantime?
For the time being, I would just be walking with Clay, getting to know him.
Yeah, I think Clay would probably be complimenting Aurora and just, Decker, that's such a fine bird you've got. I've noticed the way it can wheel through the air. It's magnificent. I've seen many a bird, but yours is one special.
Well, Aurora is special. Have you had acquaintance to meet her on a more personal basis?
I do prefer to.
Of course you haven't. I haven't done that.
Introductions.
And then she would appear on his shoulder.
Oh yes, hello.
Start nibbling at his ear, poking through his beard.
Oh well, if we're going to be like that, might take this to the skies.
I do want to point out that Aurora is probably about like half the size as you.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty large animal to be sitting on your shoulder.
Clay's a sturdy guy.
I'm not saying you can't hold it. I'm just pointing out that small observation.
Never fear, little master. She's fey, so she's not bound by worldly concerns such as defecation. So you're quite safe with her perching on your shoulder.
Well, if it's all right with you, I wouldn't mind to take you out for a brief trip around town. And he'd actually be talking to Aurora at that point.
Were you talking to me or the bird?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Decker, if you don't mind, I'd love to test myself against her speed.
By all means, I think this might be a first. But what test did you have in mind?
Just a quick flight around, I guess, the level.
Well, I wouldn't say no, other than she's a very particular bird. I don't think she would do it for any less than a wager of sorts.
You're muted, sir.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
He would clench his pipe between his teeth and get a big grin on his face. And a wager, you say?
Oh, she says it's... I'm sorry, she makes the rules.
Well, my fine feathered friend. What do you have in mind?
At a minimum, drinks for the next month will be on the loser. I'll take responsibility for her debts.
A deal is struck. And Clay will stick out his tiny little hand or I guess offer one to Decker and one to Aurora.
Oh, Aurora would dip a wing down and touch his hand. So I'm assuming you've got some manner of competition that doesn't involve your stubby legs against her majestic wings.
You insult me, Caspian.
No, I simply make an observation. You've got quite stubby legs that could never keep up with her wings. I think they're fine-looking stubby legs, but they're very stubby legs.
Well, it's not the size that counts, it's how you use them, thank you. And he'll drop off the backpack. Here, hold my pipe.
Take his back.
And-
You give me the backpack?
Well, he's just dropping that to the floor. But the pipe is special.
With the utmost of care.
And you'll see him, once again, just kind of everything start to melt into himself and then expand outwards. Or I guess with an owl, it's kind of the same size, so crush a little bit and form into a nice large owl.
All right. Roughly the same size. I guess it's an equal contest.
Yeah. So I'm somewhat unfamiliar with this, so you might have to inform me, Seth. Do you use your own skill set when transferring into an animal, or do you use their skills?
So whenever I change into a beast, my game statistics are replaced by the statistics of the beast, but I retain alignment, personality, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
Okay.
I retain all my skills and saving throw proficiencies in addition to gaining those of the creature.
Okay.
Yeah, strength, dex, and con are always going to be the creatures.
Gotcha. So, what creature are you turning into precisely?
An owl. Just regular old.
Okay. So it is going to be almost an exact matchup, correct?
Yeah, that's fair. It's all about skill.
So,
Turn into an eagle, but no.
we'll go ahead and do opposed athletics. And do that, I guess, until someone pulls ahead by 2 leads.
What would her athletics be?
That is, unless she's proficient with it, which I'm assuming an owl might not be, that would just be her strength modifier.
So a -4. All right. So I guess the easiest thing to do would just be to roll a strength check for an owl.
Yep, that'll work.
Okay.
Okay, don't have proficiency, so...
Speed wouldn't be dex.
We could go with acrobatics if you guys want to go that route. It would be
It's
the
a-
same outcome, yeah.
Either way, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, what would that be?
So just for flavor, what are we rolling? Strength or dex?
We'll go with acrobatics, so you can do a dex check.
All right.
That's a +1.
Ooh, luck.
Okay. Good start, strong start. Okay, so now Aurora would be 1 in the lead. You want to do a second one? Ooh. Alrighty. So as Clay and Aurora, they'll dart down whatever hallway you're in, find that kind of open courtyard that you're all initially sat down in, going up through the open ceiling and then out into the first layer of Ukin. And as you two begin to kind of like intertwine with each other and swirl around and begin diving between the buildings and over chimneys and across the rooftops, Clay, maybe it's the amount of alcohol you've consumed, maybe it's the pipe tobacco still in your lungs, whatever it is, you begin to feel yourself slipping ever so slightly at the beginning of this bet or race. And as you feel yourself begin to slip, there's that tiny voice of doubt that begins building in the back of your mind as you're staring at Aurora's tail feathers. And right as you're diving over one of the rooftops, your foot just kind of clips one of the tiles, and as you hear the clay kind of clattering down the rooftop and shattering down below, you begin to spin ever so slightly, losing a lot of your momentum. And when you regain your composure, you would see Aurora as a small speck off in the distance, and you are just left as a defeated and sad owl. And then Valorant and Danica, and I guess Thor as well, as you are moving through the gardens, you would hear this small squawking noise, and then a stray tile would strike the ground between you. Everyone kind of gives it a small glance before, assuming some shenanigans are in play and then going about the evening. But Clay, you would return a defeated and winded owl as Aurora comes back to the initial spot.
After he dismisses the wild shape and morphs back into himself, probably take a knee and huff and puff a little bit and That's what I get at staring at the tail feathers. Well, Decker, you, mighty fine bird.
She is. She's been a constant companion for many years now. A dear friend, and it was a good competition, and perhaps a little one-sided. I mean, we were racing through my home, and she's had much more experience being an owl than I believe you probably have, so I will nevertheless take the spoils, and you shall be buying drinks for the next month. But I'll give you a chance to win it back.
Well, I'll take that. Next time I'm going to bet on something I know I can win that.
Probably a good policy, but very admirable. Well, tell you what, let's go get started, shall we? I'm thirsty.
That's agreeable, and as best as I can tell, this is free, so.
This will be free. And I'll take you. I would take him back into our manor, and we would have some free drinks.
Sounds good. So as Clay and Decker find their way deeper into the, I guess, almost compound-esque establishment of the Caspian Manor, Valoran and Danica would be returning to one of the, I guess, doors that lead into the manor from the gardens, and Eldred would be standing there kind of casually, sitting there with a drink in hand, watching you both approach. Just, I guess, out of curiosity, just giving you a glance, and Danica would almost, I guess, break free from you to meet him before kind of giving him a somewhat exaggerated bow of her head. Oh, Father, he is just absolutely dreamy. Where on earth did you find him? And Eldred would just get this look of acknowledgement on his face, kind of nod and wave his hand a little bit dismissively. Yes, let me speak to Lord Athelvane. You can go find whatever trouble you seek. She, again, dramatically waves her hand, walks past them before he would turn to you. Lord Athelvane, I apologize in advance for whatever insults or shenanigans she may have thrown your way.
On the contrary, sir, she has impressed me.
No surprise to be sure, but I will take that in stride. Does that mean that we have a conclusion?
I think that we might. I believe that Danica and I understand each other. And so you and I can come to an understanding as well.
Well, you certainly would be a rare find. You'd be the first man to claim that title. But I am somewhat surprised and very eager to hear this is the route that we are taking.
Well, there is one complication. I would like for her to travel with us to Folk. You see, it cannot be official until I present her at court. It is an older tradition in my country, but as I'm sure you know, I have flouted quite enough tradition for one lifetime. I go now to seek the support of the Queen and the nobles. I should start this next trip off on the right foot.
You see him nodding along, kind of idly swirling the remnants of his drink in his glass. He looks up kind of past you into the sky for a moment before he mulls over it and eventually addresses you. Lord Athelvane, let me speak bluntly, because I understand that we are both very focused individuals in our particular crafts. I am not directly opposed with my daughter traveling with you, but I will very, very prominently point out that you would then be in charge of half of my very important children that I cherish more than the world itself. And I have absolutely no concern that you would bring harm to them. But if harm was to find them, and you would be in the company that could have prevented that harm, I would take that as a personal slight. Is that understood?
I would expect nothing less. And in the spirit of complete candor, I must tell you that as my wife, Danica, would not be relegated to a life of visiting our neighbors and doing needlepoint. She would be required to, well, to do many unconventional things, which I think an unconventional lady such as herself would be very good at.
There is a reason that Danica has the freedoms that she treasures so much. On the outside, it may appear that I disagree with her various revolutions and branching thoughts and scheming and stealthing and sneaking and whatever else she gets up to. But Caspians, they don't bow to the whims of others. They don't change their personalities or their fates for anyone, even their father. So if that is the role that she fills, and that is the role that brings her happiness, then I would not be displeased.
My point tonight being that she will benefit from being behind the shield wall that the Golden Hearts can provide her. But you must know that I have seen the danger will follow me always.
I imagine that danger might be seeking an item of particular importance that you are containing in a rather peculiar device.
The agents of Tordan seek things in our land, and so we must seek them as well. That was not for that. That was for the presenting her at court being a tradition. Valoran completely made that up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll roll against it, but yeah. All right. Okay. Well, Lord Athelvain, as long as we have an understanding and you are aware that if it ever becomes a decision between a particular chest and my daughter, you know which one to jump in front of.
I hear you, Alderman Caspian.
It has been a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. May I assume that I go to folk now with an open mind on behalf of Liamis toward what the leadership of folk may have to say about the relationship in the future.
Yes, in 2 days' time I depart to Morin's Point. The aldermen have been called for a council regarding folk and the precarious nature of all of the factions around us at this particular point, so I shall be going there with words of friendship and acceptance and compromise in regards to folk, and hope that you fight that battle on the other side.
I truly believe that Liamis will not regret it, but neither will folk.
Well, I shall try my part, but I cannot promise that Leomis will throw themselves into bed with open arms. I do only control one of the significant points in the Republic.
I understand. I think somehow it shall be enough. If there's nothing else, I will prepare to leave. Not tonight, but early. Soon. Will you see to it that Danica has the essentials for a trip to Folk?
Yes, I assume I will have a rather lengthy conversation with my daughter, and I will make sure that she is prepared.
With, among other things, a frock suitable for the eyes of the Queen.
I always appreciate a man with high ambitions.
Then we should make quite a pair.
Well, go with the gods or the creator or whatever you believe in.
My thanks.
Lord
I'll say
Appleman.
good night.
And then he would depart to then go inform his daughter of her, I guess, the end of her grounding, as it's been phrased before. So, is there anything throughout the night before morning arrives that anyone would need to get on the record?
I would message Danica just with a simple "so."
Is there a limitation on the reply to this?
Maybe, but in practical terms, no, since she can message back.
Yeah, okay. So, there'd be a brief pause as, she, I guess, thinks over her response. Eventually you would get back. You might have stronger daddy issues than you let on. You really picked the closest thing to a clone of father you possibly could have found.
I didn't pick him, sister. He was an arrangement of chance.
Well, next time we have a choice, can we go with some sort of artist or free thinker versus some strong-headed noble?
Yes, that's just what you need to protect you in these trying times, an artist.
I will see you in the morning. It appears that I will be the next companion of your ragtag group.
Wait, what?
Good night.
Danica? Danica, you can respond to this message.
You would not get a response, sir. Anything else, gentlemen? Alright, so as the absolutely roller coaster of an evening in the Caspian household comes to a conclusion, the night picking over and the government quarters of Ukin being a very calm and peaceful place for sleeping hours, you would all go through your night, waking up on February 13th early in the morning. I imagine, Valorant, you would have the caravan or the cart or whoever ready to depart in the morning, having whatever ready to make that a smooth process. So that would be all ready for you, either, drawn up to the manor itself or prepared for you down at the first level. And, yeah, you would all wake, and I guess your own private rooms would be a much more fitting scenario. Decker, you would have your actual room from when you lived here. But yeah, so you would all find yourself waking up the next morning.
Just point of business here. At some
Mhm.
point before we left, I would be going to seek a healer to...
Would you want to go ahead and do that this morning while the party is departing?
It's probably the right time to do it.
Okay. So you mentioned previously that you had interest in seeking out the,
Yeah.
I guess, like, religious advisor to your father. Is that who you would go for?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be a man named Gavin Cole. So, and you would roughly know that he has, not an office, but I guess a place to work from within the government quarters, so you could basically beeline directly there in the morning if you were so inclined.
Would I have been familiar with Gavin enough to call him Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of interaction you'd probably have with him, also given the fact that you weren't here for the younger years of your life, he would be there for any sort of ceremony or marriage or, I guess, like, holiday, and you would know him in passing. He would mingle amongst the partygoers and whatnot after whatever responsibility he had was seen through. So you might have shared a drink with him or asked him some questions, perhaps, in difficult parts of your life when you were a ranger in Ukin. You might have gone to him for a little bit of religious guidance, and that's kind of up to you. So that would be the general vibe you'd be working with.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So, in the early morning hours, before the caravan is all prepared to ship off, you march across the plaza, the kind of main central point of Ukin. He works out of the lower level of a tower, where the levels above him are other various advisors, stewards, servants, and the like for the other families in the government quarter. But he gets the main floor, which is much easier access and a little bit more of a, I guess, honored position. So you'd go and knock on that door.
Gavin, are you in there?
You'd hear a little bit of, like, grumbling, the shifting of a few objects inside, and then the distinct sound of, like, clothing being kind of, like, flattened out or, like, rubbed over with a hand. Yes, sir. I have. Who is seeking my advice?
It's Decker, Gavin.
The door would swing open, and you would see a rather middle-aged, short man. He has this blonde hair that's kind of balding at the top, and there's a fair few amount of wrinkles and age on his features that showcase his lengthy life or his stress-filled life, depending on which one you go with. He's dressed in this gray, somewhat decorative robe with a black sash that kind of goes off of each shoulder. There's, like, gold gilding and trim set into the side of it. He's somewhat sleepy-eyed, as you can tell, being this early. But he throws the door open, kind of peers up at you, kind of rubs a little bit of sleep out of his eye. Another Caspian comes to, ignore my advice, or have you drastically shifted your opinion on the gods?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I have quite drastically shifted my opinion on the matter of the gods. And I come to you today and with a physical and a spiritual problem. Let's deal with the physical first, shall we? I'll take my glove off.
He kind of looks up and down your arm, and then looks up at you with a bit of curiosity. I need coffee first. Coffee? Do you want some?
Your question is that, of course, I want some.
So he would invite you inside, and then kind of silently going about his morning process. You hear him grumble a little bit, put a pot of coffee on, eventually kind of sit down on his cot as he begins to brew. And before he actually, drinks any of the coffee, he's peering over at you with, again, that bit of curiosity. We'll examine the arm once my eyes are a bit more clear, but tell me about this drastic shift that you had. This is, rather unexpected from someone related to your father.
Well, my father's many things, but perhaps one thing he hasn't that I've had was direct contact with a goddess, for that matter. Arovica, are you familiar with her?
He gets this almost like eye roll as you bring up Arovica, kind of like leaning his head back, letting out an audible groan.
Look, I know what it seems. It's not that. Suffice it to say, my questions regarding the existence of the gods has been answered, and then some. Their interest in us has also been answered. However, I found, you know, that I typically don't have problems with my belief in myself.
You are Caspian, yes, I know.
And up until recently, every time I've ever thought something, I've been absolutely sure of it. I was tested and I failed. I thought that I wanted a thing that was for the benefit of the party. And I know I'm putting the cart ahead of the horse, but the test was to stick my arm in a vat of acid and pull out said thing, if it were truly what I desired. What I pulled out was nothing that was to help my friend. It was something that may be of some help to my family, but I don't ever want that to happen again. I need to learn more. I need to be better. So, that's why I'm here. One, this is disgusting. A woman will never find this attractive. I can't think of a woman that would let this caress the most rough part of her body. But I need help up here and in here.
So listening to your entire, I guess, speech, he goes from this kind of like almost somewhat like jovial acceptance of this change that you've had, but as you continue to speak, his demeanor gets a bit more serious and attentive. He listens and clings almost to every single word that you have. As you begin to bring your arm up again, he would get up from his cot, go over to the pot that's brewing the coffee, very silently pour 2 cups, kind of setting one down in front of you. And as he sits back down on the cot, you know, cupping his hands around the mug, kind of swirling it around a little bit. Well, Dekka, you certainly still have the vanity of a Caspian, and I think we can work on that, but let's dig into something that I found more curious in the description that you've given me thus far. A lot of people that don't spend their lives studying the gods and the various whims and tasks that they bestow upon us mere mortals, they believe that they can figure it all out, that they have the answer, there's something they seek, there's some guidance they need, there's always something that they want from the gods. Once you live a life devoted to their potential existence, and I guess in your case now their proven existence, you quickly learn that you don't ask things from the gods ask things from you. This is one reason that I am rather hesitant to put my faith in the lovely Arovica, who enjoys having warriors chasing their tails until they ultimately kill themselves.
Not interested in her.
Yes, and I very much respect that. We will get into that for sure. But you, again, have not sought my advice in quite some time, but you understand that in my studies, I have mostly concluded that Ramuts is the god that defines the paths that we take in our lives. The one that gives me the magical ability to heal your vein injury.
Perhaps I misspoke. Honestly, if this never healed, it would be the least of my problems.
We're getting somewhere. But I will attempt to bore you with the details, because that is what I am known for. If you truly are seeking to delve more into this world, or the world that they live in, it's a very long and arduous journey, and it is not something that I would speak of lightly. So before I begin divulging all these wonderful secrets that I have found, I want to genuinely know that this is what you truly want.
Well, I don't know how to prove that to you other than, for God's sake, man, I'm here. When was the last time when would you have expected this?
I would not have expected this in 100 years, Deca. Let me
Nor
pose it
I.
to you in this way. I don't know the particulars of this vat of acid, or your party, or your friends, but if you were to go back to that particular moment, and you knew that when you reached into that vat of acid and your arm would be as injured as it is, that you knew that whatever you pulled out wouldn't be the item that the party needed, would you do it again?
Would I have? I don't understand. I mean, if I knew it was doomed to failure, no, I probably would seek another option. If I knew what I'd pull out would help in some other way, perhaps. I don't...
Oftentimes, with the gods, you find yourself having to put your faith blindly into something that may even seem to be impossible or wrong at the time. I think that is the root that I'm trying to get to. Would you sacrifice yourself knowing that it might not ultimately lead to what you want?
Well, there are few beings on this planet or outside of it that are equal to me, but if it was what the god wanted, then yes, I would submit to that.
We're getting closer. I think this is a tremendous day, Deca. It certainly has been a very long time since anybody in your family has asked a question more than how my robes have been tended to, or when I'm going to show up to bless whatever party that they are throwing. I like this.
Then I intend to make your day even better. It's my intention to follow in your footsteps. I'd like to learn to become a cleric of remits. And yes, I know this is something that might take some time.
Have you told your father about this?
You mad? Of course not.
Then I approve 100%.
Deal then.
May I assume that you're not planning on sticking around here for months and months at a time?
I'll be leaving today, so I was wondering if you had someone who could come with me. I mean, Lord Valorum has managed to bring along an entire circus caravan. Surely, I should at least be able to bring along someone of my own.
If I have the opportunity in my very short life to show a Caspian the power and the ferocity of the gods, then I don't think I would pawn off that responsibility on somebody else. I'd want to personally go with you.
You're joking.
Well, I'm not doing a lot of good here with your father anyway, so...
Yes, he quite puts very little stock in what you have to say. Be wonderful.
I'm assuming you have coffee in your circus caravan full of people.
Probably not enough for the both of us. We'll secure more.
Well, I will have to gather my things and attempt to figure out how to speak to a Caspian for more than an hour at a time, and be a good time. Good show.
Gavin, thank you very much. It will be a pleasure. And do you have any idea why we are traveling?
I don't know specifics, but I have been gaining bits of insight here and there through my visions. I have some idea of the mission that you are set upon.
Well, then this just might be something I think you'll be very interested in. It's right up your alley.
Well, let this be the first lesson I bestow upon you, my new pupil. Remoots is the god of life and death. So given a certain party that we might be speaking of, there would be a rather vested interest in our god and what you seek.
Well, we shall probably be off within at least the latter part of the day. Will that be enough time for you?
Yes, I'll find someone to get my affairs in order, and then I shall collect my copious amount of things and meet you at the estate.
Right. And this, I mean, I don't know how it works. Do you just... Or is there more involved? Or is this perhaps going to be some part of my tutelage?
I was considering that, yes.
It hurts, you know.
Pain is the name of the game, I've heard from
It
various
leaks,
people.
it smells, and it stains my clothes.
Alright, well, when we have our first night on the road, I will make sure to take care of it. Does that
will
soothe
be
your fears?
No, that will be tonight, Gavin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, leave me be. I shall come to terms with this revelation and meet you presently.
Good day, Gavin.
It sure is. Alright. So, rest of the party, waking up in the morning, what would you be going about doing?
Just for the sake of, I don't know, recognition, I will insert here that based on Thor's statement at the party, there would probably be some kind of confrontation where
Yeah.
Valoran would press upon him that Danica is either traveling to Folk alone or she's traveling there with the caravan. Maybe that'll be something we'll sort out later.
Yeah, I'll go with the headcanon that he's either outvoted or is convinced otherwise.
I would have a talk with him and just let him know the absolute futility in trying to go against what her wishes are, and she wishes to be with us. That's what's going to happen, whether we want it or not.
Mm-hmm. All right, Clay. Any morning activities, sir?
Exercises. You know, he'd probably go through his daily kinesthetics, I think they're called. Probably utilizing some cantrips to throw out, you know, thorn whips or like little fireballs or whatever. Just kind of warming up for the day just in case.
Okay.
Probably in that courtyard.
Okay. Valorant, do you have anything for yourself besides the Thor intervention?
No, I don't think so. Not that we didn't already kind of talk about and take care of by now.
All right. Any last minute things before we leave Ukin then?
Oh, flashbangs. Was there ever an opportunity to see if there's something that could be purchased?
We can certainly inquire with Clara about making some potentially along the way, if that works for you, sir.
Yeah, that totally works.
Okay. Do you have any sort of proficiency in nature? I imagine you would.
I do have proficiency in nature.
Okay. You want to give me a roll? Solid.
I really missed my lucky feature.
Wow, she also rolled a 9. Splendid.
Doubles, doesn't that?
Yeah, it's like poker, right? We will get to that, but I will put that down as a note. Anything else, gentlemen? All right. So as you say your parting words to the Caspians, Decker saying goodbye to your parents and saying hello to your twin sister, surprisingly, and begin descending from the government level and down to the other various levels of Ukin, you can see the slowly rising sun kind of cast over the river valley. You can also see into Giles' kingdom at this point with the various news and information you've been given about Giles. You probably look off in that direction with a bit of worry or concern, but eventually getting down to level 1 and having a vision of the road ahead, you would depart heading west, heading in the general direction of Folk. So it's roughly gonna be about a week and a half's journey to Folk's border, if not a little bit longer than that, depending. And then from the border of Folk to Corsair, is that where you were heading, sir?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that would also be about a week and a half, so the entire journey, you're probably looking at about a month with the amount of people that you're traveling with and the rate that you have to go. So is there any sort of questions or concerns about that?
I think I might ask Wiggles to get the spies
Giggles?
that we have in... Huh?
Giggles?
Oh yeah, you're right. Giggles.
Yep.
Giggles, Wiggles. Eh.
Fruit salad.
I get him to contact our spies that we have in Folk to try to scout and observe and report on Black Eye and his band.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and drop you guys over to the Folk map real quick. Okay. So, Lord Valoran, if you look at Corsair, do you see to the north that the emblem of the songbird or the yellow bird that covers New Sham and Broughton?
Yes.
Okay. So you would understand, using your history and knowledge of Folk, that those are the two main, centers of power for that coalition and where they kind of operate. The more precise news you could discover going through Giggles as he reaches out to the spies and kind of has them maneuvering around while you travel, you would learn that the murder or the butchering happened in New Sham. And it was, let me find this real quick. Where did I put this? The Rotarills is the family that was targeted, and it was 8 people that were murdered that night. And then after the murder, and the supposedly full orc and his half-orc brethren being freed slaves, as they retreated, they passed by Broughton, however you want to pronounce that, and was assisted by other slaves that were still in captivity, I guess you can say. And then those slaves, for punishment of assisting in this rebellion, were hung the next day. So that is the general information that you could gather, kind of poking around a bit more. Any other questions there, sir?
Not at the moment. And there might be a number of other things too that we'll address over time to fill in that month, but I think we could say that like soon into the trip, anybody that is interested would notice that like Valoran and Danica's behavior is not particularly romantic. He just sort of treats her like a special guest, but still just sort of one of the caravan.
Okay. I imagine that leaving Ukin, Danica might come up to Decker and have a conversation. Is that something that you want to indulge in, sir?
Yeah. Sure, that would have happened.
Yeah. So very soon after leaving, perhaps that same evening as you guys depart, she would, I presume she has a horse, because it makes the most sense. Maybe it was supplied by the Caspians if need be. But she would ride up beside you and give you kind of a curious look, and then look around at the scenery that you guys are traveling through. You know, when you first showed up, I was not ready to be whisked away. I was very, very content to shove a big middle finger at whatever law that you had procured and continue leading my life, but
Procure him, he came with me. Father procured him.
I will finally correct myself. You did not procure him, but you found him like a stray animal and then dragged him home.
Drag him either. He's a lord, he let himself there, really.
Oh, Father would be ashamed that you did not take charge in such a daring adventure.
Get to the point, Danica.
I just wanted to say that it is very nice to be traveling with my brother. It's been quite some time since we've been together.
Missed you too. I have noticed that you're not entirely romantic with Lord Valoran. I'm assuming that fire has burnt out.
Are we supposed to be holding hands and dancing in the pale moonlight?
Well, when you come under the auspices of getting to know him, and then you certainly seem to be ignoring him professionally.
Lord Athelvain and I have come to an arrangement that suits us both.
I see. You're fucking with Father, aren't you?
I mean, that's a guarantee.
Is there anything I should know, or are you going to keep me in the dark and surprise me along with everyone else?
I guess the only thing that I would say is I wouldn't completely put the option of marrying his sister off the table in case Father gets very upset.
It was never off the table. I simply determined that between the two marriages, yours and Lord Valoran's might be more beneficial all around, and you will have to marry somebody at some point.
Well, that is a very masculine way of telling me that my life is already determined.
Very masculine. What do you want from me? I can grow a pair of tits and try to sweet-talk you, but it wouldn't work very well.
Can we try that? I know there's a lot of magical people in this caravan. Can we make that happen?
Sure, we'll see what we can do.
Anyway, dear brother, from what I've heard, his sister is so well-mannered and beaten and pleasant. I'm sure you'd love her.
Have you heard about her? I know nothing of her.
From the very, very loose words that Lord Athelvain gave me, it seems that she is cut from the same cloth as you and I.
So I would be engaging with myself? or with my sister. Either way, that's kind of disgusting.
Well, you should be rather used to engaging with yourself.
The long months on the road, one does what he needs to.
All I'm saying is that she might
Why
be...
are you, Danica? Why are you here? I love having you here. Believe me, it's
It's very apparent, yes.
no. It's a treat, but it's also very dangerous. Thor was not wrong. We did lose someone in our party. It wasn't expected, and it was much harder to deal with than I ever would have given myself credit for.
Decker, we're twins. We've been through
Really?
more than I would like to admit. Oh, yes, I'm glad that you noticed, finally.
No idea.
Let me put it to you this way. If I showed up to your home and you were chained to a post, and I said, oh, the world's going to end, and we're on a dangerous mission to save it, and if we don't, everybody's going to die a horrible, horrible death, and then said, nope, you have to stay put, how would you feel?
Chain probably wouldn't hold me.
Oh, yeah, such a big, strong man.
No, just a slippery one. Find a way to pick it or something. I'm glad you're along, Danica. Just be careful. I lost a fat man, rather annoying one, disgusting, but in a lot of ways a very good man who, despite everything, was beginning to be a friend of mine. And that hurt more than I could ever imagine. I could not survive losing you, Danica.
And I could not survive the same. Hence why I am here.
So did you notice Gavin was traveling with us?
I did notice that. I was, somewhat interested to see how Father reacted, but we had to leave very abruptly.
Do you know why he's traveling with us?
I assume that you have found some deep-seated issue that you want to solve with religion? Perhaps there's not enough women on the road?
No, there are never enough. But...
Let me guess, you're after Aerovica?
remotes. I'm going to be a cleric of remotes.
Oh, I never took you as one to be, depressing.
Want to be what?
Depressing. Gloomy. Sad.
Maybe I'll bring some light to that old bugger. Lighten him up a bit.
Well, whatever guidance you need, I hope that you find it.
We may or may not. I hope so. Please, just... whatever you do, don't hurt Father. You know he's only got the best interests of the family and ultimately us in mind. If you don't intend to marry this Lord Valorin, don't make some game out of Father. Don't try to hurt him.
Brother, I am somewhat insulted that you think that I am out to hurt our family. I merely oppose the ambitious side of Father, and sometimes choosing one's family over what is right is not the best decision.
What would be right then?
Perhaps instead of playing into the game of these somewhat barbaric governments and their practices, maybe we should break the system, find a new way, with all the power and influence that we hold.
Okay, I'll play your game. In your ideal world, you win. What happens with you? Who do you marry?
I don't think I would marry anybody.
All that you danced with last year, was it?
No. I would certainly enjoy company, but marriage is not my speed in my perfect world.
Danica, I'll just tell you this. If you don't want to get married, and it really is a decision between yours or this Genevieve, if she'll have me, that will be our primary course of action.
She kind of glances over at Valorant, who I'm assuming is probably leading the caravan at most times, you know, atop Belgrease, and then looks back at Decker. Well, we don't live in my perfect world, brother. And if I have to marry somebody, he doesn't seem horrible yet.
Just say, it's an option. If you don't want to do it, it won't happen. If I have anything to say about it.
Thank you. Genuinely.
You're welcome, genuinely.
There's been a lot of other talk of various things. I do want to make mention that you are quite impressive currently, traveling around to save the world.
Currently, I've always been impressive.
Hmm.
Just more impressive than you remember, and I grant you that. I'm growing up, little sister.
Indeed you are, and from what I have overheard, you were quite ready to take a plunge for these companions. It's very admirable of you.
They grow on you.
Hmm.
Given time. Like a... Well, like something that grows on you that you can't get rid of. I don't know. Nothing witty to say.
Like
right
a horrible toe fungus or something of the sort.
I was thinking more along the lines of, like, you know, one of those wart things that grow out of your neck and you cut it off and it still comes out.
Yeah, a growth, yes.
Right. It's like one of those. You just... Eventually you learn to live with it and make it your own. It seems like that's what's going on with this little group we've got. Each one of them on your own would be nothing that I would really have found myself consorting with. But as a whole, they are something else.
Well, perhaps once I get to grow with them, I'll figure out why you all call yourselves the Golden Hearts.
I don't know. I had nothing to do with that. It's quite garish if you ask me, but whatever.
It has a nice ring to it. Maybe it'll make a good song.
I think they may have already made one. I don't know. Sister, the last I checked, you had many strengths, but skill in combat was not one of them. Did you learn anything while I was gone?
No, I much prefer to play a deadly version of hide-and-seek.
Good, exactly. My point entirely, please. Far in the back, behind everyone with pointy things.
At the first sign of trouble, I will dive behind my valiant fiancé.
Alright.
So, after that evening, I imagine that night you would go through with Gavin's promise to heal your arm, sir. And he would probably use that as the first time to begin hinting at the various kind of deeper learnings and teachings that are required to call yourself a cleric or a man of the faith with Rumuts or Rumuts. So, you would eventually, after a rather lengthy ritual that by the end of it, your head's beginning to hurt with the amount of information that he's trying to cram in, you would have your arm return to normal. You would see that kind of black, scaly skin that was left by Ziggurat slowly fade back to a more normal hue, and then eventually returning to such a close shade of normal that it's easy to pass over. But there is just the ever so faintest hint of discoloration between where the injury was and where it wasn't. So there's still the vague I guess, reminder, yeah, of the event. But is there anything over the next couple days of travel that the party would want to discuss? Potentially poking away at Clay or anything, or the new companions that you've picked up?
I figured that would be the time frame in which Valorant and Clay had their talk regarding the Chosen and how they're not necessarily going to be as useful
Mm-hmm.
as Valorant had hoped.
Whenever we pass through a village or a town over the course of the month, Valoran stops to kind of ask around and heal some of the sick.
Okay.
I think Clay would join you on that one. Healing and guidance.
And Decker would walk along and with Gavin, as he was probably also participating in the healing Festivus.
So, I guess one thing to, talk about or point out is you would begin getting the genuine teachings of Ramutz and his followers and kind of the general beliefs of that. Is that something that you're interested in going over now, or would you want to kind of start trickling that in occasionally?
That's up to you.
Okay. I mean, just to make sure it's actually put on camera, because I don't know if we've ever actually discussed this before, the Earth Father is kind of the center of the pantheon of the gods that the Pruid and the folk people believe in. The only difference is the folkish people they call their religion the New Ring, and their genuine beliefs, or their difference in beliefs, is instead of thinking that the world is theirs to conquer by military might, and the Earth Father has basically passed down this endless goal of spreading his influence that way, the folkish have taken it into a more loose interpretation where they see influence and wealth and money and networks as a way to spread the Earth Father's, I guess, acknowledgement or worship or anything that they would see as noteworthy. But besides that, it's basically the same religion with just different goals or different avenues of achieving the same goal. Beneath the Earth Father, there is Ramutz and there is Arovica, the two children of that pair. I can look up the mother's name right now, but I don't have it on the top of my head. She is the goddess of family, if that matters, or we can get into that at some point. But Ramutz is the god of life and death. So both in folk and the Pruid Empire, any sort of healer or, I guess, like a doctor or any sort of medical adjacent field in this world would be connected to that in some way, shape, or form. Whether it is somebody going over the ritual at a death or a burial, or someone healing the sick or the poor, or I guess healing the rich for that matter, depending on who you are. That would be the general responsibility or school of Ramutz. But it also, you know, dips into the life side, right? At births, at weddings, at various celebrations, he is kind of held up as the present watcher of all different, what's the word I'm looking for, like gatherings of that sort or celebrations of that sort. What Gavin would begin hinting at or talking about or explaining his beliefs, he would explain a world and where the Earth Father began Asmiliath, you know, kind of set the mood, set the tone, established the world that the playground was going to be in, and then kind of removed himself to a more background position, letting his children take over the day-to-day aspects and the various decisions that the more prominent heroes or villains or people are going to make throughout the fate of Asmiliath. So while people still worship the Earth Father and people still claim him as the creator of the physical realm that you function in, he explains that the children are now the more direct line to that power, to that realm, I guess you can say. So where Arovica is this sought-after being that bestows, or rumors to bestow, power and glory and, martial feats. Ramutz is kind of like the general keeper of the watch. He is the one that makes sure that, the population's under control, that the harvests go well, that, life continues as we know it, and death continues as we know it. So that would be a very broad introduction to the world that you're kind of stepping into, and a big lore dump that I certainly appreciate getting on the record that would become kind of general knowledge for the party in whatever avenue you see fit. But that would be what you're, I guess, showcased during your time on the road with your new guide. Would any questions stem off of that?
I'd have to think on it.
Okay. Yeah. And then this topic would be open to any of you if interested, either if Clay or Valorant had any sort of questions or comments or inquiries with the new religious figure traveling with you. That is certainly open as well. So. But is there anything else besides, being very gracious and free healers of the people that you guys want to get on the record?
Might ask about any type of monster troubles.
Okay. We get to that after the 10-minute break, I suppose. So as the days of February begin to tick by, and the, again, larger caravan of the Golden Hearts makes steady progress westwards, passing through Black Hollow, marching beside the swamps as they continue their journey, and I guess also stopping at various towns and hamlets along the way to heal anybody who needs it or asks for it or requires it. You find yourself winding down a particular evening, the general routine of the caravan kind of taking up, where the leader is brought off the side of the road, the carts are kind of lined up to form a loose circle, and then everyone finds various places to rest their head for the evening. Clay, give me a nature check. Okay. As you've still kind of found yourself at the fringe of this party, physically and internally, you spend a lot more time near the outskirts of the caravan or the outskirts of the camp, listening to the various animals, being very in tune with nature, given your usual, I guess, interest. This particular night, you've camped a fair distance from the fringe of the swamp, though you can still kind of hear the distant sounds of it drifting into the night air. It's also rather uniquely cold, even though it is now February and you're still within the winter time frame. This night seems particularly chilly to you. As you're sat a fair distance from the campfire, doing whatever Clay does best, you would hear like the distant, very distant sound of wolves. And this isn't anything extremely out of the ordinary, especially in the hills beneath the mountains to your east. Wolves are known to, traverse this land and hunt and find their way around. But it is a bit more consistent than you would normally assume. And that just kind of piques your interest ever so slightly.
Never one to brush off a potential warning sign. I think Clay would approach the group. I assume they'd probably be around the fire. And just we should be a little more on guard. I can hear the forest beasts stirring. Well, wolves anyways.
Do you have any idea what's causing that? Not normal for them to howl this much.
Well, my main concern is proximity.
I've not known
Would you
wolves to attack a group this large, but keep an eye out.
you think
Valorn
you could-
ignites his glaive and then looks around for Borg to ask him how the dogs are behaving.
Do you want a in-character response or not a character response?
Not necessarily. Just
Okay.
go with your feelings.
He would mention that they are a bit more on guard than usual. That might not be the proper term that Borg would use, but you get the gist. He's mentioned that, whenever he tries to, tug them along or get them in the cart or, move them around, there's a bit of hesitation before they, stare off at some distant thing or ears kind of perk up a little bit more than usual. Nothing that he would be alerted to or he would sense anything dangerous, but enough that he's noted it and would mention it when asked about.
Right.
Decker, would you be so kind as to maybe have Aurora accompany me? I wouldn't mind scouting about.
I mean, like you turn into an owl again.
Something a little more land-based.
Sure. And I would, I'll have her. I'll sit down by the fire and concentrate on Aurora. And team up with Clay in his scouting endeavors.
So your perception of Aurora only extends to 120 feet, correct? Okay. It would be general knowledge to at least Clay that the howls that he's hearing is farther than that, so you can either keep that limit and do your scouting to that extent, or it would be beyond your perception.
I'll just keep her. I'll keep her just circling a wide arc around the camp.
And Clay, what was your plan?
I'll change into a direwolf and go see if I can scout something out.
And I assume that 120 feet high,
Mm-hmm.
with bird vision out,
Mm-hmm.
I can see a decent distance away from the camp.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah. It's just like if something's like a mile away, it'd be kind of difficult to spot.
right.
But-
And
So
but if I see anything that's interesting, I can guide Clay in that direction.
mhm.
And I'll just message Clay.
So do you want to go ahead? I'm assuming you're attempting to stealth, Clay?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give me a stealth check and a perception check.
Okay, add 2 to that.
Okay.
Fuck me. Alright, 11.
And as a direwolf, you get keen smell and hearing, so you would get advantage on that?
I do have advantage on perceptions that rely on hearing and smell. Yeah.
Yep.
So, that's 3. I'll just use roll 20.
All right.
So
as you
20, 30, 20.
Okay. As you break away from the camp and allow Decker to kind of be your eye in the sky as you traverse the foliage of the trees, you begin heading in the general eastern direction that you heard the howling from. It's keeping your ears and your nose very present for any sort of, interesting tidbit that might catch your attention. You're maybe about a 2 or 3 minute kind of jog or a canter away from the camp before your ears kind of perk up and you hear that howling again, but much closer. Not close enough that you are afraid of its proximity, but enough that you realize that you've gotten closer. As you kind of sniffle in the air, kind of like reaching your snout up into the sky, you would get the distinct smell of dog or, canine, but you would also get a kind of underlying smell of death, of rot, of kind of foul meat, maybe. And that would be what you would perceive.
Would that death and rot be reminiscent of like a discard pile from from their meals, or something a little more malevolent or unfamiliar to what normal
The
beasts would
closest thing you would probably compare it to is like a couple day old dead body.
Okay. Then rather than risk an incident, Clay would head back after getting a little bit more better coordinates for where they are.
So,
He
Decker,
brought
you
back-
would basically watch Clay come back in his direwolf form with Aurora.
I mean, yeah, is there... is it... There's nothing I'm assuming I'm seeing.
Yeah, it would be too far away for you to perceive with Aurora. But, do you tell your findings to the party, sir?
Yeah, Clay would stalk into the firelight and kind of start shuddering and collapse in on himself back to normal shape. Well, I don't know how much we have to worry, but those beasts had something foul.
You have a lot to
Foul
worry
about.
about, then. Beasts don't travel with foul things. They despise it more than we do. And I'd fire
Well-
off a message to Danica. Get ready to play hide and seek, sister.
Always ready.
Yeah, Valoran voices his agreement. This cannot be coincidence. 2 arms, everyone.
So,
You
Iron Pot would very quickly whip up the caravan guards, kind of get them set off in a general layout around the camp, kind of have everyone on high alert, looking out. Not that everybody is on watch or, awake, but everyone is very aware that something might occur.
Well, if you're preferring to take the fight to them, I can lead y'all over there, but I don't know how wise it is to seek trouble.
Whereabouts are we in the world?
Let's go ahead and move you to about there, I would say. So the howling that you're hearing is in that kind of eastern woodlands beneath the mountain range.
And we're probably a good ways outside of any of the settlements here.
Yeah, at least like a day's trek backwards to get to the town that you've left, and probably a day and a half or 2 to the city to your west.
Valoran is... I'm going to start like right at the front of the caravan for a short amount of time, and then fall back to the back, and then to the front. And
You guys are stopped at camp currently. Are you talking about like the perimeter?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And ping with divine sense every half hour.
And the range on that's what, 60 feet?
It is 60 feet, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, concurrently, I'll be parked in the middle of the camp, connected to Aurora, circling.
And you all...
That'll only like that'll for as long as this might go on. I can do that for 3 hours if I do it every 30 minutes, but then I'll run out.
Okay. Clay, are you doing anything during this time?
See, I got some rope. Maybe tie a few traps.
Okay.
Between some trees. You know, if I can set up maybe, how much do I have? 50 feet. Maybe 5, 10-foot sections of rope tied between 2 trees,
Okay.
just around the camp to see if that'll maybe trip someone up.
Go ahead and give me a survival's a thing, correct? Yeah, give me a survival check.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess everyone give me perception. Decker, you'd be giving me perception with Aurora. Nice.
Would you care for me to roll for the dogs at all?
Oh, yeah, sure. And then also roll for Thor.
Here comes the dogs. We'll just give them 1 roll.
Hey.
It's actually better than that because I just used my sheet, and they're better at perceiving than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And Thor, his perception is a +2. Yep, on brand.
Did you want me to roll anything?
Roll perception with Aurora. And then Valoran, what is your personal perception? Nice. Well, you're distracted.
I'm divine sensing.
Yeah.
That's different.
So there's Aurora's perception, and then you want me to roll one for me or not?
Well, you get advantage as Aurora, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. What was the Mastiff's total?
They actually got a 23.
Okay.
And that I just rolled 1 time, but there's 4 of them, but I think maxing out is plenty.
Yeah. So Clay, as you set to creating these little traps around the campsite and keeping an ear out or an eye out for anything that might catch your attention, and Decker, as you are cast into Aurora, kind of slowly swooping small circles over the campsite, using your owl eye vision to seek out.
That I rolled with mine. Sorry, make that a 19 for.
Gotcha. Yeah, as you dive your eyes into the foliage in the woodlands to kind of see if anything pops up, you would all hear the mastiffs, who are somewhat not slumbering but kind of relaxing in the back of a cart, stand up, jump down from the small lip, and then pull at the leashes connected to the side. You would see all of their ears go alert, all of their noses kind of sticking up in the air, the fur on their back kind of standing up slightly. And Decker, as you are cast into Aurora, and you're staring down to the woodlands below, you would see the vague shape of about 3 or 4 things, moving, shifting shapes, kind of moving slowly towards the camp. And this is probably about 200 to 150 feet off of where the edge of the camp is. As you focus in on them, kind of quickly discerning that this is an approaching something, one of the creatures lifts their head up, and Aurora is met with these kind of bright yellow eyes before the head goes back down and begins kind of trudging slightly further.
So with Aurora, in line with them, in between us, them, and I'll have her just start making as much noise as she can that's audible to us.
Mm-hmm.
So that everyone knows that that's the direction. So that's kind of where the focus is pointed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll snap out of her and relay what I saw exactly with the yellow eyes. And
Valoran, I'll say, Sergeant, defend the wagons.
Um, Given Clay's history of fighting monsters and beasts, would it be likely that that would not be the only point of attack?
Having general knowledge about wolves, you would kind of, yeah, easily assume that their tactics include surrounding on many occasions.
Be wary of our flank. They tend to try to catch you off guard.
So, Decker, are you staying out of Aurora's perception, or are you going back into it after you inform the party?
I'll go back into it, up until when there's initiative rolls need to happen.
So as you jump back into Aurora and quickly kind of dart your senses around to focus back in on where you last saw these creatures, you would see them, instead of moving towards you, perhaps due to the racket that you have caused, perk up a little bit, the shapes kind of freezing in place for a moment, before they begin kind of skulking backwards away from the camp.
And then, based on what Clay had said, I would look towards the flanks, look to our rear to see if there's anything else.
Another perception roll real quick. Darting your eyes around the entire circle of the camp, making sure that all edges are covered. It's not in every direction, but there are other spots where you catch the black, dark shape of some sort of creature, a silhouette against the foliage of the woods, slinking back, kind of like taking a roundabout path back to the initial cluster that you had spotted.
Like you said, Clay, seems they're surrounding us.
Clay will crack his neck and pull forth the discs. Their glowing energy kind of surrounding his arm. Well, boys, let's see what y'all are made of.
So are you all waiting, for lack of a better term?
Keeping eyes peeled.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of fire do we got going on?
Usually there's like a center campfire that's used to cook the meals and kind of heat various people in case they need it.
Okay. Is that going to be where we're fighting around?
I assume so. So as a minute passes, waiting for another glimpse, another sound, any sort of hint towards something approaching, you're all sat there just quietly listening to the rather low hum of the nocturnal life of the woods, a cricket occasionally, some rodent jumping from one tree to the next. You're all sat still, even the rest of the caravan are all kind of somewhat eagerly waiting in their tents or their bedrolls or their carriages. And then 5 minutes passes. And then 10. And right as your senses are beginning to hurt by constantly being on high alert, you hear a distant, similar howl off to your east.
Clay will take up a westward position.
So is the party waiting again?
How
ask,
flammable, dude?
Yeah, I'll ask We have 2 clerics with us, right?
Mm-hmm. Well,
And they
Lavelle isn't a cleric. She's more of a healer.
Okay, then I'll ask the one cleric I know if he can bless us.
I deal with much more ceremonial things than any sort of combat blessings.
Fair enough. Maybe
If
we
you
both
want
have
a
something to learn.
long and fruitful marriage, I can make that happen.
Probably worth focusing on right now. Thank you, Gavin. Go get safe. We might need you in a moment when we're done.
How flammable does the trees and whatnot around us look?
Moderately?
That's too much of a risk. Okay.
How long is the party on guard, I guess I should ask, is the question.
What do you think, Mr. Clay? Do they mean to draw us away? Are they coordinating an attack?
Decker, you said they were surrounding us.
Sensed a presence around us, yes.
My assumption would be they want their evening meal. How patient they are, that is another matter entirely. If you wish to try to catch them unawares, I have some things at my disposal that may help us perhaps turn the surprise on them.
Proceed at will, Mr. Clay.
Gather round. I need you close. And Clay would kind of encircle the group in a slight aura and begin chanting as we travel through the void between the heavens, and a dark energy coalesces upon the party as he casts Pass Without Trace.
What's the, who are you casting it on? How many?
So I can do it up to me and my companions. It doesn't give me a number. So, I guess, Thor for what it's worth, Decker, Valoran. What the hell? It doesn't actually give a number. So can I go with everyone?
It's everybody within 30 feet.
Yeah.
That you
Alright.
choose.
Yeah, if you get everyone within 30 feet, which I assume is possible, but maybe kind of awkward.
So, yeah. Everyone in that 30 feet for the next hour, as long as I concentrate, will have a +10 bonus to dexterity stealth checks.
Oh, God.
+10. Yeah.
You're gonna have like a 45 or something.
Yeah, I could sneak past the god right now. Let's do it.
So what's the plan?
I have to maintain this, so the sooner we get on this, the better. Decker, do you see anything big? Any particular ones that seem larger than the rest?
Did anything stand out with Aurora, or were they?
With the fuzziness and the darkness of what you saw, it would be very difficult to discern if one was bigger than the others.
But was there more in one group versus another?
The initial group that you saw was a cluster of 3 to 4, and then you saw probably about 3 others moving back towards that group.
The largest group was that way.
Well then, shall we maybe nip them in the ass and get some new fur coats?
Hesitant to leave everyone unguarded here.
You have all those guys.
Yes, but they're not us. If we go out, let's try not to be gone too long.
Valoran digs in his clothing and pulls out his signal whistle and tosses it to Sergeant Ferris. And says, "Hold the line. Let us know if it starts going badly."
Of course, sir.
And then to the party, "Let's away and break this siege." And he extinguishes the flames on his glaive.
So everyone is proceeding stealthily, I'm assuming. Let's see those rolls, boys. And then Thor needs one. And who is leading this line?
Hopefully our stealthy one.
So I got a 38, if that's good.
38, 24.
Or
Okay.
alright, I'm gonna stay mounted. Do you want mine or do you want Belgry's?
Huh. I'd want Belgry's, but I'd probably still impose the disadvantage for your armor.
Sure.
Okay.
Let me see what his stat is. Alright, it's not worse than mine. So... Did it do that right?
I don't think so.
Well, that doesn't seem right. All right,
Reroll that.
let me do it. Yeah, 1d20. All right, there's one. There's the other.
Okay, so we got a 14, a 19, a 24, and a 38.
Well, that 14 would be a 24, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I just said that. Didn't I?
No, I added the 10.
Yeah.
I did it manually, and I added the 10.
Okay. Who's in the lead? Sorry, you said Decker?
Yeah, it'd be me.
Okay. Give me a perception check, Decker. And you could be using
Can I
Aurora
offer
if you
him,
want.
Guidance.
Yeah, I'll
Sure.
use Aurora. I'll use Aurora.
Mhm.
I get only a +3, but it's a at advantage, so take that.
Wait, I do not give him guidance. Never mind.
Okay. That's a 16?
Yeah.
So as you guys break away from the camp, and to any observer, it would appear to be this constantly shifting, strange black cloud of mist moving beneath the branches, or I guess the canopy of this woodlands. Neither sight, nor smell, nor hearing, there's definitely a word for that I'm missing, is passing out of this strange, shifting bubble, for lack of a better term. And as you make a fair bit of progress, traveling for perhaps 2, 3, 5 minutes, Decker, as you are cast up into Aurora, and she is again doing kind of lazy circles over where you're at and glancing her vision down into the woodlands, you would spot perhaps about 200 or 300 feet further. Your dark vision limitation dies out about halfway there, but there's enough moonlight to see off in the distance, kind of shifting around in a small patch of barren land where there isn't any giant trees. a few moving shapes, and it almost appears as if they are culminating at a point. First, there's one that kind of comes in and does a very slow jaunt around the perimeter of the space, then a second, then a third, and then as you're like kind of widening your attention, glancing at the surrounding area, you would see other shapes kind of weaving through the trees, getting little glimpses of them through the top of the canopy. Eventually, after about 10 or 15 seconds of observing this, you would see one of the shapes in the clearing lift its head, and again, excuse me, those yellow eyes kind of lock with Aurora. And as you see the first pair, another raises, and then another raises, and then another raises. And you would watch as this maybe 40 or 50 foot wide patch of land begins to fill with yellow pairs of eyes until there is about 15 discernible pairs staring up at Aurora with no movement, no hesitation, no shifting, just constant eye contact.
They're able to see this bird?
Yes.
Gentlemen, I don't believe we're going to be undetected much longer. And then I'd let them know what I saw.
Try to keep their attention focused on the bird.
Right
Maybe
now,
we can
they're staring
get
right
from the
back.
back. We'll make it flashy. See if we can make it over there.
So you're still proceeding towards that area?
Yeah.
So as you all continue to very stealthily make your way through the woodlands, using your own perception to kind of reach out and see if anything alerts you, but mostly relying on Aurora's kind of fixed gaze on this showcase. After making another 60, 100 feet of progress, you would see their eyes downcast just as suddenly as they had appeared, and then the black shifting shapes begin to almost part like the Red Sea and moving in the general direction away from you and the camp. About half of them slowly kind of ascending towards the kind of hills off to the east, and the other half moving off to the west, just very slowly, but about equal pace with your progress moving further away.
That coming out of Aurora?
Yes. And then I'm assuming Decker would pass that on.
Yeah, and anything like that, I'll pass on.
We will not be fooled into abandoning the caravan. If any of these groups starts to make ingress, then we will sweep toward them. Agreed?
Agreed.
Well, which group are you focusing on then?
Going to the east is towards that town we just left.
Well, you guys are... Here, let me do a little bit of drawing real quick. So if you guys are the red X kind of shift, and this is not exact distances, but to give you a general idea, moving off into the woodlands, you would have spotted the shapes about there, and now they are kind of going that way and that way.
Yeah, I would not chase them and split for sure. Or I wouldn't agree with it anyway.
Then should we head back to the camp?
Probably for the best.
We'll circle back and see what they do.
So, turning around your progress, making your way back towards the camp, the nighttime actually finally setting in at this point, probably being around maybe 10 o'clock at night at this point. You return to the warmth of the fire. Everybody is still on alert, but alive and unmolested as much as you can tell. And as you return, there's nothing notable to pique your interest.
Perhaps a double watch tonight. The men won't appreciate that, Lord Athelvane, but the beasts have our scent.
Agreed. And we'll keep the mastiffs close at hand.
So what's the exact plan for the night's watch then?
I think... I don't remember how the math works out. Do 3 watches get you all the way through the night, or you need 4?
I want to say it's 4, because you need 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep/rest to manage a long rest. So if you cut that by 4, you could still kind of manage that.
So I think each one of us plus one of the NPCs plus a mastiff, because there's 4 mastiffs.
Okay.
Okay.
So any
And,
particular order you guys want to do that in?
Valorn will go first.
Okay.
I think Clay would probably take 3rd, because that puts us pretty well in the dead of night.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me, 2nd or 4th.
Okay. Decker will be 2nd. Thor will be 4th.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone, so Valorn, first give me perception. Alright. And then, of course, we have the Mastiff and the Guard.
The mastiff is +3 with advantage on hearing and smell based.
Yeah. And then, we'll go ahead and just go through the whole route. Decker, give me perception. Whether you want to do that by yourself or with Aurora, it's up to you.
Yeah, I went with myself. Seemed to work
Okay.
better.
And then... Okay. And then Clay, perception. And then finally Thor. Nice.
Yep. He's with us in spirit.
Valorant, as you take first watch, and you settle in as everyone else finds an uneasy sleep, keeping relatively vigilant, but feeling the general fatigue of not only, like, the stress of your mission, but the arduous physical exertion that you put on yourself to travel as much as the party does. You sit there and move through your watch, keeping a keen eye out, maybe occasionally reaching out with divine sense if you feel so inclined. Perhaps an hour, maybe 2, after you'd all returned back to camp and everyone has found sleep, you hear a slightly closer howl off in the distance.
I think that sort of taking a cue from Clay, I think that whatever direction I hear the howl, I sort of post up in kind of the opposite direction and stare into the foliage, daring something to come out.
Mm-hmm. So you wait there for several minutes, or perhaps half an hour, depending on how long you hold that position, waiting, again, to hear any sort of hint, sign, noise, smell, anything. And as you wait there again, the Mastiff, perhaps maybe across the camp, still strapped to that same cart that it was initially, you see its ears perk up, you see its snout begin to work, you see it begin to like pulling at the leash, and then again, a slightly closer howl.
The rest of the camp has got to be hearing the howling too, so it's not as if it's not as if it's a secret just for me, but
So it's far enough away that anyone like sleeping or in a deep sleep wouldn't be awoken, but anyone that is awake would definitely hear it.
I think I would make my way toward wherever I know that Ferris is.
Mm-hmm.
And alert him first.
Okay.
Not to raise an alarm yet, but just that the howling is returned.
So this is kind of at the tail end of your watch, I guess you would say. Like, you probably have maybe 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes left before you're supposed to, check in with the next one. So as you rise, Iron Pot, kind of like, stirring from his bed, he's worn his armor to his sleeve at this point to make sure he's ready for anything that might happen. He grumbles up, kind of looks over at you, kind of listens out a little bit. Well, how do you want to proceed, Lord?
Wake the guards, have them join this watch. Posts around the camp, evenly spaced.
You're going to get you a rest then?
In a moment.
He would then diligently get up, arouse the guards that are not currently awake, kind of get them posted, and seat himself at the center of the camp around the fire. So would you wake Decker at this point, if it's his turn to watch?
Yeah, give him the update.
Okay. So Decker, as you are awoken by Valoran, there is only like a minute to kind of come to and kind of gather your senses before you are quickly kind of jolted awake by a much closer and much louder howling noise that is perhaps only 200 or 300 feet away at this point.
Right. Well, I guess they didn't go away. You got your matchstick ready, though, Valoran?
Perpetually.
Well, I suppose we should probably wake everyone else up.
I'm not so sure. I think this might be the game. Keep us awake and exhausted all night.
Well, they're doing a great job of it. Righto then. I'll try to get some sleep then.
I had Ferris wake all the guards and post them. Use your judgment with how to instruct them from here on out.
So they're doing their godly duties in a godly fashion.
With a plum.
So, word you don't hear every day.
Valoran will sort of settle. I think he'll go to the wagon where he knows the chest with 7 locks is, and just sort of climb in it and put his back against something with his glaive folded up in his arms, for his rest.
Send a quick message to Danica. Are you awake?
I am now.
Okay, well, where are you?
I'm behind the cart. Over to your east. Look over here. And she kind of like waves a hand behind one of the carts.
Did I see where Valorant went into?
So the general layout that I understand is like the carts are kind of in a somewhat circle surrounding the camp. So I've always pictured that the most important one is kind of like nearest the road, which would be your west at this point. So he'd be in that one.
All right.
And Belgrease is like standing next to it, so it's very obvious.
Please, don't argue with me. Just go to the cart that Valorant's in and get tucked in behind him, please.
Echo, is this some
Just go.
thought out of them? You see her kind of like stand up from behind the cart and kind of look over at you, and then look over at the cart, look back at you. You boys are so strange, and begins kind of walking across the campsite.
Danica, you're in my realm right now. Just do as I ask, please.
Yes, holy creator, of course. And begins getting towards the cart.
And then I'll just send a quick message to Valorant. Protect her, but if you don't want to marry her, I certainly understand.
All you get back is right.
The Valorant, as you are getting settled, you would see Danica's head kind of like poke up over the edge of the cart as she's like beginning to lift herself up. Move over. I don't fucking know. I just want to sleep.
Valorant doesn't say anything. He just sort of helps her in and keeps looking out the back of the wagon.
With absolutely no grace, kind of like a rude teenager kind of trying to be woken up for school in the morning, she just like hurls her bedroll over herself, curls into the corner of the cart, and just kind of locks herself off from the rest of the world. So, Decker, as you pick up your watch, is there a certain place that you are sitting at, sir?
My standard watch is going to always be this. Right in the middle, by the fire, nice and toasty and warm, with the bird circling, expanding my view.
Okay.
That's how Decker keeps watch.
Are you casting into Aurora, or are you just letting her alert you if she sees something?
Casting into him.
Okay. So as you're sat, waiting, listening, again, very aware that this is potentially some sort of game or some sort of routine or pattern taking place, you don't hear another howl, because if there was another howl, it would be incredibly close. But Aurora does eventually spot a shifting, singular kind of black shape moving through the woodlands towards the camp. It is perhaps 15 or 20 feet back from the edge of the tree line that surrounds the camp. And it kind of pauses in place, kind of tucking itself into a bush that obscures its view a little bit. And if you were to remove yourself from Aurora and come back into Decker and kind of give that direction a kind of fleeting glance, you would spot one yellow eye out of the pair peering at the campsite from the distance that it's in. And right as you're kind of focusing in on it and trying to like precisely pick out the shape of the creature, the mastiff attached to the cart begins an uproar, barking, howling, tearing at the leash that it is attached to, waking up the camp as it is pointed almost directly in the direction of this creature. And everyone would be awoken by this. Everyone coming out of their carriages, poking their heads out of their tents, waking up from their bedrolls, and then the yellow eye would begin to disappear and dart away.
I'd let everyone know what I saw, and then I'd keep going back to looking. Did I see where it fled to, or are there anything else around it?
The general knowledge you would have is that it came roughly from the east, maybe a bit more north than the last approach, and then it took off in that same direction. So, having not spoken up in a fair bit, is everyone kind of getting up and out of their sleeping places, or just kind of waking up and going back to sleep?
I'm sitting tight.
Okay. So, Decker, as you're sat in the middle, and I guess you would disclose this info to the guards and Iron Pot, Brandon Campbellton, looking rather tired, but still dressed in his armor, kind of plonks himself down next to you, rubbing a metal gauntlet up to his eye, which he then thinks better of and kind of sets it down next to him. I think it's probably best just to ignore it until violence actually occurs.
Ignore what?
The beasts that hunt us. Maybe we can
Yes.
muzzle the mutts.
There's beasts out there.
Isn't that what we've been discussing?
It's a joke. Maybe it's too early for one.
It's too late, for one.
Right. Muzzle the dogs. Wait for the fanged things to attack us. That's what the guards are for, anyway.
I'm sure they would all appreciate hearing that from the fearless leaders.
Certainly not fearless. And then I'd reel it. It's as good as idea as any. And I go talk to the guards. Put a muzzle on the dogs. Let's try and get some sleep for those who can.
So Borg would go ahead and muzzle the mastiffs in various different ways, kind of get everything settled yet again, and everyone returning back to their watches. Unless anyone wants to react in a specific way. Decker, you would ride out the rest of your watch, another hour going by before another distant howl comes off to your east, and then a closer one, and then a closer one. And right as your watch is beginning to end, and you can feel the weariness in your eyes, kind of like almost attempting to force them closed, you would spot another small shape either through Aurora or your own, kind of moving around the perimeter of the tree line, kind of staring at the camp as it moves.
Bastards, these things. Other than keeping an eye on it and marking its position with the owl, I'm gonna go with Valorant on this one and not pull the trigger yet.
Gotcha. So Clay, as you are woken up for your watch, you are met with the scene of these muzzled mastiffs still struggling at their restraints, their eyes, ears, and nose perked on these various spots around the camp, one point kind of north, one to the east, one to the south. The guards would look weary and tired, kind of leaning on the barrels and the crates and the stools that they're using to rest upon during their watch, and you would be awoken to this sight.
Clay would go to the guards and look, have you lot drop down, grab a couple minutes. Could use it. I'll swap up the other half for the next watch.
The two that you relieve would be very gracious and quickly follow the orders given.
Quick question, mechanically, did I get at least a short rest in?
Yes.
Okay. So
Can you take a short rest and then a long rest? Or does the short rest interrupt the long rest? Because you can only do one long rest per 24 hours.
How long is a watch?
So a watch broken down, I'm assuming a watch is 10 hours because you have to have more time in it than a long rest so everyone can get a long rest. As far as I'm aware, kind of making this work in my head. And then every watch would be 3 hours, 4 hours, and then letting people take their long rest during that.
So a long rest is a period of 8 hours during which a character sleeps for at least 6.
Okay.
And then the other 2 hours are light activity only.
Okay. And then would we qualify watch as a light activity? I would imagine that would count as like active.
Standing watch is explicitly named as one of the light activities.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So did I get my 6 hours in of sleep?
Yes. Definitely after 2 watches,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Just for resource management. Yeah, so I think at this point, yeah, Clay's going to take up watch near the edge of the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe try and hide, stealth.
Give me a stealth check. Nice. As you break away from the center of the camp, kind of approaching the edge of the clearing, you would kind of like dart your attention to where the mastiffs are located or focused on, because it kind of makes sense in your mind. And as you look kind of almost directly forward, perhaps 30, 40 feet in front of you, there's enough light kind of eking in from the very early dawn. You are just able to discern a large, furry, bestial shape. And as it goes to turn, its yellow eyes meeting yours for just a moment before bounding off into the woodlands, you are perhaps about 70-80% sure that you just stared face to face with a direwolf before it bounds off.
So in that case, Clay will go ahead and wild shape into another direwolf. And then start circling. No, he'll let the guards know. In that case, he'll let the guards know. He will.
I don't know, sir. I just saw a wolf and I.
And then
Can
a
you
wild
make him
shape.
like bright pink or something?
I was gonna say actually a vibrant red to match his beard.
Okay.
So he'll wild shape himself into a vibrant red direwolf and kind of make his rounds around the camp as though this is my territory.
Give me your perception with advantage against her. All right. So as you make slow circles around the camp, using your direwolf senses to kind of reach beyond the ability of your own, you are able to discern that there is like hints and remnants of the smell of canine kind of dotting the perimeter of your campsite. And there is still that kind of ever-present underlying smell of death. And it seems that it isn't from one particular source. It seems to come from small pockets of kind of leftover smell from whatever has been watching you.
This game has gone for quite a while now. I think Clay will try and lure them out, going up towards the tree line, keeping at least a maybe 30-foot buffer. But he'll start to get closer, see if he can lure any of them out.
Closer to the campsite?
To the tree line.
Okay.
So getting closer and closer to where they're hiding.
This attempt would be lost rather quickly as you begin your circles. After watching that one dash away, maybe another 30 minutes or an hour into your watch, you would hear a somewhat distant howl.
After that, then he'll go back to camp and crick back down into Clay. And probably tell the other two guards to that are still up. I remain hopeful. I think you two can grab your rest. I'll make sure you wake up if we need you.
They would agree and then also point out that the dogs are probably not going to sleep if this continues and go to sleep. So left alone for the rest of your watch, sir?
Yeah, he might whittle. I think he'd probably find something to whittle.
So another hour or so would pass, a more distant howl. And then another hour would pass, and a closer howl. And then the end of your watch would come, and it would be Thor's turn.
Just kind of relay to him the shenanigans. And, well, good luck, big man. Wake us if you need us.
He would
And he'll take that.
take watch. And given the astute observation of our giant friend, he would be able to realize that there is a closer howl. Then you would hear another howl. And then there's probably some noise. Oh, the dogs are looking at something. What are they looking at? Oh, it's gone. Okay. And then eventually his watch would end. So as it's about, we'll say, 6, 7 in the morning, the sun is basically risen at this point, with the morning light kind of cast across the usually dark scene of the camp, and everybody awakes. Some of them more well-rested than others.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yes, but thankfully not deadly. It's nice having a lot of people around. Normally I have to deal with this type of crap on my own.
I expect they'll be back tonight.
Probably nothing will happen. Sure, everything will be fine. What could possibly go wrong? There's nobody laugh here. I'm losing my touch. Right,
Well
okay.
done.
Breakfast? For all that's holy, Valorin, please, stop rambling on so.
Short
really?
breakfast, and then we're moving.
Decker, you would get a very quiet and somewhat mumbled message in your ear before Danica, begins to get herself out of the wagon or cart. He was just as talkative throughout the night. So after a curt breakfast, everybody would pack up the camp and get on the road as per usual. I imagine everyone's a bit more weary going into today's travel.
How many days are we from our next settlement?
You'd probably go through today's travel, spend one more night out, and then arrive at the city the next day.
Like early in the day, late in the day?
Probably about noon tomorrow, we'll go with.
Okay. Okay.
So as the party sets off, and some of the guards and the various members of your caravan begin to return to a more normal, routine conversation, demeanor, it's only about 3 or 4 hours into the day, the sun fully kind of removed from the horizon, the air kind of warming up from the cool February weather, before a familiar and distant howl rings off from the east somewhat far behind you.
Clay would kind of call to the group and They have this pervasive smell about them. Rot is normal enough whenever they are done with their meal, but something carries with them. There's a lingering decay.
Yes, probably some sort of undead. Wolves don't have yellow eyes. They glow. In my experience in the wild.
Can I, history or nature check that?
I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that wolves' eyes don't glow yellow.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well. Maybe some alarms about the camp if we can tonight.
Like mastiffs.
Well, maybe something a little farther out.
Mastiffs with bells.
Yes, Decker, mastiffs with bells. From what I've gathered from them, they love extra weight about their neck. Well, let's hope we can get to town before they try again.
So proceeding as per usual. Another couple hours pass, probably coming up close to noon at this point. Sun high in the sky, everyone keeping conversation to a minimum as they are waiting for the suspected sound. And after a while, their fears are finally met, as still far, but definitely closer, symphony of howls reaches the caravan's ears yet again.
How close?
It is.
What directions?
It's still east, kind of trailing, I guess northeast, not following the road, but following your path in the woodlands. It's hard to get an exact distance, but we're talking like a mile or more away, like far enough away that you are hearing like the residual sounds or the echoings of it versus it being like right on top of you.
Lord Athelvane.
Yes.
Do you think your men could handle a quicker pace? This game of cat and mouse has, well, let's just say I'm riding on blue balls here.
Without responding to Clay, Valoran calls out to Ferris and says, We're picking up the pace, Sergeant. Double shift of travel today.
Of course, my lord, your will, my hand.
His will, my ass. Literally, it's going to hurt.
I'll let you know if it's a hand, I'm sure it will.
So the caravan would pick up its pace for the evening. Did you want to attempt to travel through the night and arrive exhausted at the city you are heading towards?
I think for the nighttime, how much farther is it if we do a double?
So if you spend that half, like the rest of this day, kind of doubling your pace, you would be pretty close to it by nightfall. And if you traveled through the night, you'd be getting there like 3 or 4 in the morning.
I think we're already... What I remember of forced marching, that's already pretty harrowing to do. So I think that I ask for the guards we're gonna make camp, and for them to cut down some saplings and branches and try to make some simple palisades, some simple barricades to shore up our campsite with.
All right. So we're following the same watch order as last time?
Yeah.
Okay. So hearing 2 more howls throughout the evening as your pace picks up, not seeming to leave this distant threat behind as it continues to match your pace marching westward. Eventually, as the evening is coming into fruition and the camp is beginning to set up, the caravan guards beginning to chop down trees and form a rudimentary barricade around a tighter perimeter this night. Valorant, give me a perception check. As you're not quite even on your watch yet, you're just watching over the various activities of the camp, making sure everyone gets to their places and finds a good place to sleep. You would hear 2 of the caravan guards that are kind of away from the center of the camp, working at a kind of weaving a bunch of pine trees together, or young saplings together, to form a somewhat structured wall. You'd hear one kind of muttering to the other, "You think they're just gonna fucking eat us tonight? Ah, they're gonna fucking eat us. They're just gonna sit around all day. If it was me, I'd go marching in there. Why are we sitting around?"
This is a good opportunity. I'm going to walk up on the horse, walk the horse up to them, and just come around the front and glare pointedly without saying anything.
You want to give me an intimidation check? Yeah, okay.
So ready on that one.
Oh, So as you approach this duo, and you give one of them a glare before moving to the other, the first one very quickly, understands what has happened and begins quickly working on his wall like nothing had ever been said. The second one meets your gaze for a little bit longer, lets his eyes drop, and then slowly raises his head up to you again. "What's the plan tonight then? We're just gonna wait?"
You're going to follow your orders and protect your charges.
All right.
It is all right. And then I just nudge Belgrease and walk off again.
He would return back to his work. Interesting. All right. So, watches. Everyone quickly fire me a perception check. Oof. Okay. Oof. And then Thor.
Up his bonus again. Yeah, okay.
This is where he's going to be a nat 20, I believe. He has to do something. All right. Okay.
He's improving.
So as camp is set up yet again, and the understanding of what is about to occur is felt by everybody in the caravan, Valorant, you take first watch, and like the sun rising, you hear the howl, and you nod your head, you understand, you grin and bear it, and a few hours pass, a closer howl. And then near the end of your watch, almost like clockwork, you would hear a close-by shuffling before the mastiffs pull at their restraints, again staring off into the close-by tree lines before there is silence. And then we would go to Decker, who is awoken, takes his normal watch. Again, you would hear the howling, distant, then closer, the moon dragging up into the night sky as you are forced to sit through this tedious, relentless pattern of torment. And then it would it would approach the edge. The mastiffs would alert. You would feel your body kind of reflexively tensing and then quickly relaxing, understanding what is precisely going on. And then silence yet again. Clay, we get to your watch. Same thing,
Now-
same... Oh, yeah.
Now hold just a second there. Clay's
I
gonna
gotta
try
play.
to be- I've got the idea of a plan.
Okay.
Clay's gonna pretend to be asleep.
Okay.
He's gonna pretend.
Oh. Are
that
you...
he's-
Are we doing the same Mastiff guard watch, or is it singular watches at this point?
He would tell the guard, hey, shore up against the wagon wheel, keep one eye open, but don't move too much. And try and put on a play that, like, nah, we're not watching, we're just sleeping. But he's gonna have his eyes under the brim of his cap.
So as your watch begins, and you kind of settle into this... Oh, excuse me. This very deceptive slumber, pretend slumber. You hear the howl. You hear the closer howl. And then you hear the mastiffs alert. But instead of the usual rustle of a bush and then the pounding away of paws, you kind of very sneakily glimpse from beneath your brim, and just on the edge of the tree line, you see the front haunches. Haunches is shoulders of the direwolf kind of stepping out of the brush. You can now clearly and finally see the silhouette of the beast as the yellow eyes begin scanning the camp. And it is large. You are very familiar with the size of a direwolf. You've turned into one on occasion. And it, if not matches, slightly exceeds the size that you usually hold. And so it is a rather frightening sight to see one step forth. And if you wait a few more seconds, you would see a second step forth. And as you're very slowly letting your gaze kind of move with the slightest rotation of your head each fraction of a second, you see a third and then a fourth. And as they're all kind of approaching, you would see one take a few steps out, put its nose to the air, a few sniffles, and then begin to, like, do the movement to howl. Is there anything you would do during that time, sir?
To clarify, how far away from me are they?
50, 60 feet?
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So Clay would give a quick clearing of his throat just to and then cast Entangle.
Okay.
So kind of a, from slumber position to a quick, he'd whip his discs up and I can't think of anything witty, but cast Entangle on that group and all the creatures within
How big is the spread of it?
20-foot square.
Okay, you probably would only catch the one then, because they're kind of like separated around the circle.
Okay, then that changes a little bit. I thought they were together. So in that case, just the clearing of his throat, just a 3 quick towards the guard.
Mm-hmm.
And anything? No, I don't have anything specific. And then maybe give a kind of a kick with his foot towards. I don't know if anyone's sleeping on the ground near him, but
Give me a perception check.
Come on, give me something good. Yeah, that's good.
So as you clear your throat, kind of like knocking your head slightly to make sure the guard beside you catches on to what is occurring, when you kind of almost instinctively return your gaze back to the wolf that was beginning to raise its head, you see that it's interrupted its movement, and its eyes have snapped over to the source of the throat clearing, and it stares into your eyes. And there's a brief moment where all the other noise, all the other perceptions kind of cut off for a minute. And as you're locked in this gripping gaze, you swear that for the briefest moment, you see the long canine snout of the creature, the edges of its somewhat hanging lips, curl into a smirk. And just as you catch that brief movement, the wolf beside it lets out a bellowing howl before the entire pack lets loose this scream, and everybody is raised as the wolves begin to dart away.
Oh. Can I,
If you want to try and cast something, you can, sir.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do Entangle.
Okay.
And to be clear, I rolled an odd on my last little check, so we'll see if this thing... But yeah, so I'll cast Entangle on that one.
Strength
saving throw 15.
All right.
And let me just make sure I'm not lying to myself on something. So I'm pretty sure I'm about to fuck this guy's world. Saving throw, perfect. Okay, so whatever it rolls, remove that from it.
All right. I'll let you know the result, because I like this. It rolled a 10. It has a +3. Minus the 2 is 11. And it fails.
Wonderful.
What are the effects, sir?
So, grouping vines just shoot out of the ground, wrapping it around. It is now restrained and, kind of held in place there. It can try to chuck it off with a strength save at the end of its turn, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, until it can use an action to make a strength check against it. But
Okay.
so yeah, it's stuck there.
So with as your vines shoot from the ground and the wolf that was locked with you has a moment of hesitation that pulls its eyes away, you get a firm grip. First one lashing over kind of his lower back and pinning its legs to the ground before it tries to claw away with its front legs. And you see a vine... Stop, dog. You don't have to roleplay this. You see a vine whipping around its front paw, kind of dragging it away, and you almost kind of spread eagle this beast onto the ground as more vines begin whipping over its shape. I'm not going to call for a full initiative roll because the other wolves are going to quickly dart away, but I'm going to allow everybody an action before it attempts to break free. So that's kind of the situation that we are in, however you guys want to respond to this. And it's probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. And everyone would be awake due to the very loud howl that just took place.
Lord Athelvain, we have a prisoner.
He hops on Belgreaves, moves Belgreaves' movement toward the wolf, and then holds the arm with his charm aloft and says, "Come forth and make a count." And I cast Compelled Duel. DC 16 Wisdom save for the duration, which is a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It has disadvantage on attacks against creatures other than me, and must make a Wisdom save each time it attempts to move more than 30 feet away from me.
Okay, it fails.
So if it can get loose from the vines, it's got to make that wisdom save every time it tries to move more than 30 feet away from me.
Give me a quick perception check, Valoran. Nice. As you stomp up with Belgrease, meeting this restrained beast, even when it's pinned to the ground, and now that you are able to get, I'm assuming maybe you ignite your flame glaive to kind of cast a bit of light on the scenario. Feel right?
Yeah, that's a bonus action, sure.
Okay. As you approach and your light kind of reveals this beast to you, if it was standing, it would match the size of Belgrease. This is a massive beast, and it is one that is built for very deadly means. But as you take that in and feel at least a little bit of, I guess, glee that you have captured one and have it restrained, your eyes focus in. There is this, the beast is covered in basically brown and black matted fur. There's a lot of, mud and sticks and twigs kind of mixed into its unkept physique or coat. At the base of its neck, just kind of where the neck would connect to like where the shoulder blades are, you distinctly see kind of a slick part of the fur, and maybe holding your glaive aloft, kind of peering at it a bit closer, one of the vines kind of shifting out of the way as it still pulls the beast downwards. You would see a fleshy hole driven into the back of the beast, the fur around it colored with dried blood at this point, but you would see living maggots and creatures kind of crawling around in the wound, kind of squirming and falling out of place as the beast struggles, showcasing discolored and sickly looking flesh.
Yeah, on my next turn, I'm going to ride at it.
Okay. But we would have Decker and Thor before that occurs.
So are we in combat?
Not really. I mean, so I'm not going to enforce initiative. I'm allowing everybody in action before it attempts to break free, because you've been kind of awoken, and you would know that if you were awoken during this night, that combat would probably ensue. So you're rather alert, and you just have like an action, and I guess you could probably close the distance pretty easily, potentially.
I'm gonna move away, actually, and then go back. If I can, I'm gonna go back into Aurora and see if there's anything else. I mean, I'm not so worried about the one wolf at this point.
So give me a perception check from Aurora. And it is almost daytime, so I'll give you a little bit of leeway with this one. Okay. So as you focus on the outward versus your companions focusing on the inward, that's totally how you phrase that, you would see almost a perfect circle of movement stemming from the center of the camp and bursting outwards. You would see probably about 10 to 15 distinct dark shapes quickly darting away from the camp before the ones on your west begin to kind of circle around a large loop to kind of get back to the far east. But you would see the rest of these, assumedly dire wolves, breaking away and then culminating kind of far off out of sight.
Valoran, we're completely surrounded. It looks as if they might be pressing for an attack. Command your men.
And then James is a stickler for rules, so he's not going to reply. So is Thor Jr. doing anything?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Daniel would do here, but Mini Thor is going to move to the side of camp opposite of Valoran's side.
Mm-hmm. So then we'll come down to the wolf's turn, leaving the caravan companions to spectate for the current moment. And it's going to attempt to break free. So is that the same strength DC of 15?
15.
Okay. And then, does it get any sort of reaction penalty from you, sir?
No, because I already used my reaction, so...
Well, it rolled a frickin' 1. So as it is snarling, snapping its head, kicking its legs, kind of squirming under the vines, its yellow eyes begin to kind of dart around, connecting to Valoran before staring off in the direction of the camp, and then meeting back up with Valoran being the closest threat. And then everyone kind of gets in action again.
Would I lead that action order?
You could take watch order, you could do it however you want. It's a very loose combat right now.
I think Clay would just call out, Lord Ethelvin, we don't have time. Do you want to kill it or keep it constrained? And he would take the... Nah, fuck, that's all concentration. And for now, he will go ahead and draw upon the power of the heavens above and enact his starry form in the form of an archer and start glowing, much to Thor's delight. But you would see that on the hand that holds the discs, a kind of ethereal, translucent bow develops out of the star points, and he does have that trained on the wolf.
All right. Valoran.
So he just I just call out, make ready. But then ride up within 10 feet of the restrained wolf and attack it with the glaive.
You would get advantage on that because it's prone, correct?
Yeah. Well, restrained.
Not prone for the record.
Oh. Gotcha. So does restrained,
so-
that just makes your movement 0, right?
Yeah.
And then
Disadvantage on
actions.
dex, disadvantage on, or advantage for attackers against it.
Okay.
All right, number 1.
Hits, barely.
So here's that damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll also do a level 1 smite, which if it is undead will be 3d8 instead of 2d8.
Okay. It would be 3d8. So that is 36.
28, 36, yeah.
Okay.
Second attack.
That hits.
I've been I think this is the first crit that I get to smite on. I have to smite with it. I don't
Okay.
like blowing the whole wad on one wolf, but I can't not smite.
Give it a highest
So-
level smite you got.
Damn.
And then I think it would be 1d8 and 1d10 and 2d6 again. It didn't account for it, did it?
So the 9 that you rolled would turn into an 18 plus the 4, so that's 22. And then the fire that you rolled, which is 6 and 4, which is a 10, would be 20. So, yeah.
And now we're smiting again, so that's another 3d8.
Which would be doubled. So 26, 20, and 22. So that's 60 something.
26 and 20 is 46, and 22 is 68.
Okay. Due to the extreme circumstances, Valoran, how do you want to do this?
So he rides up on Belgrease, and holding on with his knees, both hands on the glaive, whips it around, and opens a gash that is simultaneously cauterized as the flame-tongue glaive cuts through it. And then Belgrease spins, and he comes back around and drives the glaive into the wound that he has just opened. And that second, like the first smite opening this wound, drives it in, sticks it, and the energy of a second smite just pulses down the length of the glaive from his hand, and the hide of the wolf is seen to sort of go for a moment, and then it crumples under its own weight. He yanks out his glaive again. It's steaming from boiling blood. And I'll take whatever's left of Belgrease's movement to ride back toward camp.
All right. I think that you did an apt description of that, so I'm not even going to attempt to better it. As you absolutely decimate this wolf, the first strike nearly killing it before you drop a bomb on it moments later, you see its form crumple, you see its struggling and writhing cease, as the yellow eyes, almost like their own mini explosions, glow brighter and brighter the more radiant damage that you push into it, before once you hit that maximum load, they kind of expand suddenly and then shrink into nothing, leaving these black, empty sockets before this second dead corpse drops to the ground lifeless, pulling your blade free. And as you turn to ride your impressive and valiant mount back towards camp, you would all hear another distant howl. And that's where we're going to end the session.